Good morning, friends. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Welcome to the last DAO Hangout of the month. Feel free to raise your hand, come on up, say hello. Hey there, Hefe. Good morning, man.
Good morning. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. I had a little bout of food poisoning this weekend, but I got over it luckily yesterday in time for the weekly hangout, and then today feeling 100% better. So really happy.
Oh man, I wish my turnarounds were that quick.
Yeah.
I was
You
just
saw,
I was
yeah.
having coffee this morning and I thought, well, this coffee tastes kind of strange, and I thought maybe it's because I've been sick. But no, the milk was sour. So I drank probably half a thing of like sour milk. So we'll see how I feel later on today.
Like you think it's COVID, but it's just really bad milk.
I'm like, no, it's actually bad. I went and tasted the milk. I was like, this is gross. But no, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good otherwise. Like my voice is back, which I was hoping it would be back for these for the weekend, because so many Gotchi Gang things going on the weekend.
Yeah, we do love our weekends.
Yeah, it's like all weekend is Gotchi Gang. I love it. I think No Future is still in NFT NYC, or he's at NYC. NFT NYC is done now, but yeah, it's kind of fun event. Looks like gonna be there next year, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're start making these real life meetups a thing. It looked like a lot of fun.
Well, I know Polygon has guilds, so you can register with Polygon if you are, if you are in a big city and they haven't established one, you can apply for a guild, and you can start educating people on Polygon and like have like meetups, Polygon meetups, and they'll actually fund some of your get-togethers. Like, if you need a venue, you need to rent a hall, or you need to rent some equipment for a presentation, they'll actually help you fund some of that stuff. So
that's pretty cool. We should like piggyback on that. I didn't realize they were doing that.
Yeah, so it's called Polygon Guilds. Yeah, so that's what they're doing with that. I think there's some Gotchi Gang actually that are either running or a part of guilds, Polygon guilds. So it'd be kind of cool to see these Aavegotchi guild meetups. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I'll have a look at that.
Let's see what's going on in the chat here. So for everyone in hanging out with us right now, we will be having this conversation in DAO meetings. And you can see Hardcore has the Miro board up there. You're welcome to play around with it. Just make sure you switch your arrow when you're playing around with it, so you're not moving everything around. But you're welcome to cruise around on that on the board while we're talking about it. Oh yeah, look, Zonzi is part of Toronto Guild. Okay, that's really cool. I gotta start a guild where I am at, if anybody hasn't done that yet. Because I think that's on the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast. Alrighty. So I feel like today is going to be our conversation's mainly going to be centered around these cartridges, what they are, like, timeline for rollout, issues people might have. yeah, shout out to Hardcore for putting this together this morning. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean it's just about the cartridge. It's one of those things. I think it will be very useful and interesting and helpful to the ecosystem. At the same time, if you know the main impetus to get that out quickly would be so we could have spillover back on in a more controlled way. But if a lot of the members of the DAO kind of just feel like, you know what, we don't want to deal with that right now. Let's just get this game out and let's see like move forward as fast as we can with all the other planned stuff without having to worry about bots. The only downside is that the spillover from harvesters would basically just be tucked away, and we would still be able to keep track of how much kind of was owed to each parcel in a way, and probably could dole that out later in some fashion. But that would be the main downside if we didn't implement cartridges right now and we went forward with the farm release as planned. That would just be the main downside. So either way is, in my opinion, either way is fine. We're just kind of proposing a solution in the cartridges. Obviously, it will take up some dev resources and Solidity front end, and it's not like a perfect costless solution, but I think it would also be a pretty interesting dynamic to add, kind of making the Gotchiverse a little bit more exclusive. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just kind of put it out there, and now we can discuss it.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. This is a question I've been getting a couple times about, what other things in the short term here is Pixelcraft working on behind the scenes without, obviously giving away too much alpha, but just in regards to the roadmap, because I know things have shifted around on the roadmap a little bit. So, if we weren't to roll out the cartridges, which I think, in my opinion, it's a good idea to roll them out first. But if we weren't to do that, what are some of the things that would be expedited, which otherwise would be put off if we were to do cartridges instead? Just so people
Mhm.
have an idea of maybe some trade-offs.
Um, I don't know that they would be totally expedited, because we do have, I mean, we have multiple teams working on like different things. So you know that the V2, that release is getting closer and closer to being released. You guys just saw the video on it, so it's definitely coming along. So once that's done, that actually frees up quite a few of like the front end team to work on other things. But they're kind of that's happening as we speak right now. So that wouldn't necessarily like they wouldn't be able to necessarily be diverted over to work on cartridges. So there'd be a little bit the main delay, I guess, would probably be on just getting like a nicer front end implemented for the cartridge. We could do the on-chain part fairly quickly because a lot of it's already done. It's fairly simple in terms of like an NFT. It would just be more of like the UI, how we present it to people, making it easy to understand. That I think would take the time, and it would take some design work, some iteration, um, some user testing. So that's what would take the most time. We could actually have the functionality out fairly quickly on chain, but it's just on chain. It wouldn't be that useful if it's only on chain without any like front end for it. So that's about that. As far as what else we have, I mean, we have so much stuff that we're working on. So the harvester release, as I've said before, and we do need to publish like kind of an updated roadmap because we are definitely falling. It's almost like a problem. We keep hitting our milestones, and maybe not exactly when we wanted to, but we keep hitting them. So we need to keep publishing the roadmap. But generally, the functionality that we've outlined in the Gotchiverse Bible is what we're aiming for. And so after the harvester release with harvester, reservoir, and maker, we're currently already have some members of the team working on the trait balancing. And I've mentioned this before, but the reason that we chose the harvester release first is because all that balancing work has generally been done, and not including the great work that Mikey and Notorious have done. But a lot of the balancing work for that side has already been done, so it can be deployed before the traits have been fully balanced. That's kind of what we are working on a lot right now, the combat system, and like making sure that godlikes feel like godlikes, commons feel like commons, while not being like too imbalanced and being like unplayable. So that's going to take, we have some interesting tools that we're working on right now. We actually are working on a simulator in Python that's going to let us basically put gotchis against each other and like fight. And that will probably be open source. And it's going to have a very basic UI, but it might be fun to play with. So we might
That's
have a
really
little combat.
exciting.
Yeah, so combat, it won't be in the Gotchiverse yet, but you'll, as we evolve the weapon system and the balancing, you'll be able to kind of see in real time how your Gotchi might fare against another Gotchi without actually being in the Gotchiverse yet. And from there, once we have that, we will create an area in the game that will allow people to engage in combat with each other in like a staging environment. It won't be like the real environment. It'll just be for fun, and probably do a lot of testing with the community, with certain community members. We'll have people come in and put their gotchis against each other and see what happens, because it's combat is not something we really want to just rush and be like, okay, everyone just shoot hearts at each other. That would be like, I feel like it'd be kind of like a letdown. So we want to
Yeah.
do it right, which is why we're spending more time on it. But hopefully when we do finally get to something, it'll be really fun. So that's the combat. While that's happening, we also might be releasing the NFT display release, which would come with NFT displays that you'll be able to basically link up to any NFT you have. Initially, probably only in the bazaar, because we don't want to have to deal with too much like NSFW kind of content that will immediately crop up if we open it to anything. It's just going to be another headache for us to think about. So initially, it'll probably just be Gotchi Gang related NFTs, which we do have some surprises there as well. I've been mentioning that a couple weeks now, but we should have some movement on that for unveiling of that soon as well. And then there's the SDK. I've been doing some thinking about that. Definitely have been putting some thoughts down on that, and we do have that thread. I definitely encourage anyone, if you haven't already, just go in there and drop your thoughts, and don't really think about, is this possible from a dev perspective yet, or how hard it would be to do this. Just put whatever you want there, and we will pick and choose what we can and try to make a system that is going to allow the maximum flexibility in the game with the SDK.
Yeah, very cool.
And then after that, then we're getting a little bit further out. We get the lodges, guild channeling, which will give even more utility to the wearables. And just between that, I'm sure we're also going to have lots of little things, like being able to drop Alchemica in the game and then have someone pick it up. I think that's going to be really cool. Or spending glitter on various like little potions within the game to do things. We'll probably have some surprises coming with Pixelcraft Square as well. Some little gaming activities. A lot of the list goes on and on. There's like a ton of stuff that we have that we're working on.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot in the background in the works, that we maybe have forgot about, because we've seen the launch of the Gotchiverse, the parcels. Now we have channeling, so it's kind of nice to get that update to know what else is being worked on in the background. And yeah, there is a lot there, especially that SDK. And the battle mechanics simulator is something I think a lot of people will be looking forward to. But it's also reassuring that these things are not, their development is not being slowed down by what we're trying to figure out right now. So that's kind of what I was wondering. And yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the original Gotchiverse Bible. I think it was chapter 1. It just lays out some rough milestones, and we've pretty much crossed off a lot of them. Like the
Mhm.
traits release is something you guys are working on now, is
Mhm.
to play around with the traits, and then grid release is the last item on that list before we
Mhm.
basically have run the course of this list. So that's going to be exciting as well. But I imagine that's going to be later down the line because we got to figure out all these player mechanics first. So
Yeah. Yeah, the grid, I feel like it's almost an expansion to the original, and it's gonna have a lot of other new game mechanics. Like we definitely want to have, that's when we're gonna start introducing dungeons and more PvE kind of content. Although we might have a little bit of PvE even before that. We're also working on some ideas on that. So, but the grid will be a lot about obviously there'll be PvP with liquidators, but also some PvE as well with dungeons and quests.
and if this simulator is going to be open source, I would hope somebody's going to be interested enough to build a front end and do a little gotchi battler
Mhm.
that we can just have fun with in the meantime. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, okay, awesome. So that gives us an idea of timelines, what you guys are working on. These things are not going to be really hindered, sounds like, by, figuring out this cartridge thing right now. And, before harvesters, it doesn't seem like it's going to push anything down the line. Should we get into cartridges? And I don't know if everybody was here from yesterday, but I know you did a pretty decent explanation of this cartridge console cartridge model.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Just open up the post here if you haven't read it already.
Yeah, yeah, I'll link it in the.
Check it out.
Oh yeah, you got that there. Perfect. Yeah.
I guess the main thing to think, I mean, I think that the cartridges will help a lot because we're just going to be limiting the raw number of wallets that can connect to the game. So right now there's no limit. I mean, we have banned, I think it was like 20,000 or more wallets from joining the game. Like just ban and
Holy crap!
by the
Wow.
like by the beginning of June, well, it's probably about 1 week into June. Like we couldn't really continue focusing that much on it because it was starting to distract us from other things that needed to be done. And so at some point we just had to be like, you know what, like we just can't do much about it right now. Like the anti-botting techniques we have, some of them are working, but they're also evolving new techniques to get around them, and there's no stopping them from just switching to a new wallet and coming back. And we can't. What I wanted to say was just if you have a new wallet and you don't have any transactions, sorry, you're not getting in the game. But like we can't do that because there's legitimate players out there that also are just first time users on Matic. Someone sent them zero point 0.7 Matic or something, and then they can come and play the game. So like it's not fair to real players to just have like a blanket rule that any new account can't join the game. So that is really what we're trying to solve for with the cartridge console model, is essentially giving the OG players a chance to onboard the players that they believe will be like good participants in the ecosystem. That there's actually a financial model kind of built in a way that the console owners are financially incentivized to find good players who are gonna play the game and not get banned. So if spillover were alive, they would be able to run around and pick up spillover, and they would be able to then spend that spillover on crafting, which would give them an NFT that they could then, I mean, what they would most likely do is they would try to sell it on the bazaar, which is actually kind of interesting because it opens their eyes up a little bit more to the overall ecosystem. They're like, oh, what is this? What is this like NFT marketplace? There's other stuff on here. Some of them might become bazaar flippers, who knows? But they're in the ecosystem rather than just taking the tokens and going on QuickSwap and selling them for fiat. So there's a higher chance of converting them, even though they're not purely extracting on the Alchemica side. They might still be trying to sell Alchemica via their thing they've crafted. But you know what? We're not against that. It's just we want to give the right incentives to the console, the guy who invites them, to make to give them an incentive to invite good people into the game. People are gonna play the game and they're gonna craft and use the Alchemica as they are meant to be. Their game tokens, right? So that's really what we're trying to solve with the console cartridge model. And I mean, all the details are on the post here. Really, there's basically if you invite someone with your console, you get one cartridge per month, and you can give that cartridge to a player, which is an address. So you transfer it to them. It's soul bound, it's non-transferable once it's transferred once, and the console owner will receive like a kickback from the player that they invite every time they spend Alchemica on crafting. So that what that does, it gives Alchemica back to the console owner, but it also levels up the console of that player to a point where it can actually level up and start giving them a bigger discount on spending Alchemica in the game on crafting. So they're actually getting a beyond the Alchemica that they're actually earning, they're also leveling up their own console, which is number one, it's gonna let them get more invites every month. So if you're a level 1 console, you get one. If you're level 2, you get two, and so on. And then you also get a discount on crafting and potentially on upgrading stuff. But that would be something we need to consider carefully. So the cartridge with if you don't have a cartridge, this is a very important thing. You can still join the game. You can still channel on your parcel if you own a parcel. You can still basically play the game normally as you would, but you can't pick up spillover and you can't go onto other people's parcels and interact with their parcels. You don't have that right without the cartridge. So that's what the cartridge essentially is doing. And every time you spend Alchemica, you also extend the playtime of your cartridge, which initially comes with like a certain amount of playtime. So if you don't spend anything, you're actually going to run out of time on your cartridge. And again, the guy who invited you, the console owner, is going to be like, "Whoa, I wasted my invite for this month. That kind of sucks." So he'd have to think. He should think carefully about what kind of player he's inviting into the game. So those are those. That's the gist of it. And then the main decision we probably would need to make is how should we distribute these cartridges? So there's a couple ways we can do it. One of the ways would just be to give one cartridge to every Gotchi, or to give one cartridge to every Gotchi and every parcel owner, or to give a certain number of cartridges to every Gotchi owner. So even if they have 100 Gotchis, they would only get 3. Uh, there's many ways to skin the cat. It's really just try to find the maximum benefit for everyone while also not like initially overinflating the number of cartridges that we have, because that would kind of defeat the point of having them being scarce.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And then it seems like, yeah, there's a lot of benefits to have this console. And, if you're leveling it up, let's say your first scholar was legit and you were able to level it up, he or she was able to craft a bunch of items. And in a sense, your console got leveled up to level 2. Now you're going to be printing 2 cartridges a month, and that gives you the opportunity now to invite an extra player into the game, and then you're kind of banking on the fact that this player also is going to be a legitimate player. But if they're not, then that, I guess, falls back on you to either deal with the player. Like, what happens to the cartridge in that case? Does that non-productive player still get to keep their cartridge? I guess it just runs out of time, right? Just runs
Yeah,
out of.
we're if we discover that they are so one, if they are a legitimate player but they just don't craft anything, their cartridge is going to run out of time and then game over. If they are not a legitimate player, and then we discover that they're botting, then we'll just simply ban them from the game like we've been doing, and then their cartridge is going to run out either way. Like they won't be able to pick up spillover anymore. So that's how we would deal with that. So we're not what we really don't want to do is we don't want to punish the Gotchi owner like by saying, "Oh, you're Gotchi, you're a bad Gotchi owner. You lent out Gotchis to botters." We don't want to have a stick, but we do want to have we have a carrot mechanism where we're not gonna ban you for inviting bad players to the game, but you're just gonna earn less. You're gonna see your friends who invited good players who are doing better. Their consoles are leveling up faster than yours, and you're gonna say, well, maybe I should just invite like good players.
Oh, I like that because I mean that's saying to the owner of the assets, you're not going to get stick, but you'll probably get a lot less carrot, for your
Mhm.
enterprise. You're
Yeah.
trying to curate a player base for yourself for your assets. And if you don't curate a good player base for your assets, then you just won't be earning as much as other people who are running their own little rental enterprise, whether that's a guild or a Gotchi Vault or whoever. Um, can we maybe talk about like someone who has, maybe they're managing like 30 to 40 gotchis versus like the gotchi vault? Like, how does this system affect those two different types of players? Or let's say someone like me, I have 5 gotchis. So this
Mhm.
console thing totally makes sense. How is the distribution going to work for these larger guilds that are maybe managing like 300 gotchis or like the gotchi vault? I know they have like 3 or 4,000 gotchis. How is this system going to work in with those bigger players?
So like the Gotchi Vault, that's made up of a bunch of owners, and so the owners who deposited their Gotchis into the vault would be the ones receiving the console. Wouldn't be the Gotchi Vault itself, because we
Oh,
know we know who the owner is. For a guild, if they have a list of all the original owners of the Gotchis, we could count that list towards a console owner. But if they don't give us a list, then we would just assume these are all owned by the guild. But what we want to do is we want to definitely ensure that all Gotchi owners are going to get a console. Like there's no question on that. And then it comes down to how many cartridges would we want to give out.
yeah, okay. I mean, because that's one thing I was wondering. If there's a guild that has 300 gotchis, like their own assets, they would still only need one console for that. But the question then would be, how many cartridges do they start out with?
Yeah,
Um, like, would maybe we would have to work with certain. There aren't that many big players, like what I'm saying. There aren't that many in the Gotchiverse right now. So maybe to get past any, hang-ups there, we would have to get in touch with those specific guilds just to make sure that they're included.
yeah,
Um, because otherwise they'll be getting one cartridge initially for their one console and then subsequent ones after the fact. But we need to figure out, I guess, how many of these cartridges do we want to start out with, like what's the initial number, and then the rate they're going to get printed at seems like one a month, per level.
yeah.
So that's self-explanatory. But then I guess the distribution and how many we're going to start out with is something we haven't really determined yet.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, we would have one cartridge for like every verified player that we already know has been activated and is like interested in doing a good job playing the game. And they're not like extracting 100% and selling it to fiat. Like the people who are most likely to become crafters would be higher priority. But obviously, we don't really have those numbers exactly. I mean, the guilds can give us some numbers, and we've been asking them for those kind of numbers, but that's a bit of a difficult thing to quantify exactly. So, one way would just be to give one cartridge per gotchi, or maybe for every gotchi above 50 kinship. There's a couple ways that would probably put us at about uh 10. I don't know what the kinship average these days is. It's probably around maybe 14 or
Probably,
15,000 gotchis.
yeah. I would say probably around between 400 and 500 would be the average.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, like, how many are basically being unpet at this point? Just like below 50. Just like someone in someone's wallet who is not petting them at all.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure about that. I know there's a lot that are on automatic petting.
Mhm.
Um, so maybe like a quarter of them, a third.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure.
But let me address real quick the I like the this potential like um how does this solve the actual botting? Again, it's not that we can't detect the bots. If it's actually fairly easy if you watch them within the game. But the issue is it if even if we have like currently if we have 20 people in the game all the time like on bot patrol, doesn't matter how many people we have, they're still going to be able to get unbanned and they're going to be able to come back and keep playing. So if we have this limited access system where we're not letting anyone in, you have to have a cartridge. We could scale that team up. We could have 20 guys, 50 guys. I don't, it doesn't, no, it wouldn't be that difficult of a thing to scale up the bot patrol team and just like have players in the game watching and seeing if there's bot action. Like that's very common. But the issue is right now, it's no matter how fast we scale it, they will always be able to create more accounts. So the moment we stop the new accounts from being able to be created as fast as they can, then that's when we can start putting resources into having more people kind of like doing a bot patrol. So that's how that gets solved. And obviously, maybe at some point they would make their bots so good that it'd be impossible to distinguish between them. And then that's really when things get would get harder.
Yeah, because it would be this arms race, right, between you and the bots, except it would make your job harder and you're investing your resources where they're just trying to
Yeah.
extract. So they could easily go to, after it stops working for them, they would just go to a different game, or they would, like you said, try and figure out how to get around the system once again, to the point where they keep evolving to the point where you don't even know if they're a bot anymore.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't think the technical aspect is going to help control the issue, unfortunately.
I think it would take them a while to get to that point where they would be like indistinguishable from humans. Because right now they're very unsophisticated. They're just using ClickerMan. It's very simple to like their setup is very, very simple. It's just it's hard to pinpoint it from an automated perspective. But if you have people actually in there watching them, it's pretty easy to see who's a bot and who's not. Like there's gotchis like running into walls or like circling where an alchemica was a couple minutes ago. Like it's pretty, they look pretty stupid. And so especially once there's a little bit more advanced gameplay, I think it would be fairly easy to suss out who the real ones are.
Yeah. I'm just looking at a question from Time. What happens when people with cartridges get bored? I guess if there was no gameplay for them, locking up that cartridge. But so if we're going to be releasing this cartridge system, I'm also assuming that we'll be turning spillover back on, right? Or is that?
Well, yeah, they would go hand in hand. Like this
Yeah.
is if we as a DAO choose to turn spillover back on, this is a mechanism that we could try that might help a lot with the botting and prevention. If we choose not to turn spillover on, then we don't really need it at this point because it's mostly focused on core gameplay.
A couple people are also talking about this idea of a tournament because I think it is important to track these players to the game. Maybe not so much the ones that aren't interested in the game, but there are ones that are interested in the game that, aside from making a little bit of money, they're interested in, hopefully owning some assets. So we got to make sure we're, keeping the game attractive for those players. Even though at this point it seems like there aren't too many of those players, but I've definitely hung around in guilds, like the Portal Mages, 8-Bit Gamers Guild. I know YGG has a bunch of players. These guys actually do enjoy playing the game, and they're excited about growing their bags. But we got to make sure we let the right ones in, and I think that's where the cartridge system could really, it could really make a difference.
Yeah, I think what I'm seeing here in the chat, and I agree. This is why on my thread here, I think question number 1, decisions to be made. I think I made a typo. It should be, should we implement the cartridge system? So that's the first decision. I've outlined what it could be, and then we can just decide, do we want to go down this road? Do we want to turn spillover on with the harvester release and have the cartridges, or do we just want to keep it as it is now, and maybe we'll keep it for the Wednesday, the weekend hangouts, maybe some other special events, and leave it at that for a little bit. So that's pretty much, if you guys want, we can make a sig prop for that, or someone can make a sig prop, really anyone at this point, just to say, should we implement the cartridges, or hey, let's just keep it as it is right now. Harvester release won't have spillover, and then it'd be very clear from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think people need to consider that we have to attract people to the game, and there is value in turning the spillover on if we're going to be using some gatekeeping, like this cartridge model. If we were to not turn on spillover, it might be good for us in the short term, but also remember there are other games. These players will just go somewhere else, and we want players to be attracted to our game that want to stay. And I feel like this system really does incentivize that. So I mean, it was kind of crappy having the spillover turned on and having a swarm of just bots and people just coming in to dump the Alchemica. But at the same time, I felt, well, there are actually players that would make great, they would make great players and great asset owners that are really excited to be here, and they would actually participate in Discord events and drop parties and whatnot. So yeah, I think that we got to consider both sides of it, right? I don't think it's all bad to have spillover turned on. I think there's benefits to that. It's just it would have to, like you said, it would have to go hand in hand with the gatekeeping kind of model, like the cartridges.
Yeah, I mean, does anyone else want to come up and give your perspective on it? I know there's lots of different ideas, especially
Yeah.
Yannick. Yannick, we've talked a little bit about how bots could be actually accepted into the game. I'd love if you have some specifics on how to do that, or some ideas. Would love to hear more about that idea.
Also, I'll say with Yannick, I believe they're like pretty big players with another game, Dark Forest, right? So I'd be curious to know what sort of system they use there to maybe control. I'm sure there's a bot issue in all these games, so I wonder what they're doing with that. I'm also reading some of the comments as well here.
Right. Here comes Yannick. Hey,
Good
sir.
morning, sir.
Good evening, gentlemen. So with Dark Forest, they use a combination of invite codes and legal bots, basically. And that's what you're proposing with cartridges sounds very reasonable. But I think we're making a mistake here by fighting bots, because 1 year from now, we will have the same conversation. It will be still, they will be just very good. So there is no need to waste resources, and rather we can do something fun. We can turn them into mobs, meaning users should always have some advantage in game. Real player should always have some advantage in game. Maybe it should be some more difficult gameplay for bots or something like that. And bots will be struggle. They will be automated, but they will struggle, and they will be basically turned into mobs. And real good bots, yes, they will be like raid bosses. But maybe they will also have like a lot of alchemica. It will be fun to hunt them down. So you create this rather than fighting, wasting resources, development, etc. Fighting them, just make them into gameplay. That's from what I research. It's the only way to benefit from bots. That's my opinion.
Mhm. Yeah, I think one of the difficult aspects is we do kind of envision the Citadel to be a friendly place, so we don't really want to have a lot of PvP. There is an interesting thing I was thinking about today though, is when we eventually do have the DAO or the district as a DAO concept implemented, maybe certain districts could turn their PvP on. Maybe they could vote, you know what? We're this is the danger zone of the Citadel, and you might let them have that option. I don't see why we couldn't necessarily do that technically, but it would be more of a cultural reason. So that would be like once you have PvP, I don't think PvP alone or just gameplay alone is going to solve the bot issue, because bots can also they can learn how to PvP, and they could gang up on, you could have huge swarms of bots like going after individual players and just demolishing them. So I still think I like the Dark Forest invite code plus something else method. I think at this point, like an NFT game that is play to earn probably needs some sort of some filter via the invite. But I have a question about the invite. Is there any punishment for an invite? It's just like you give an invite to someone. Are there any punishments or benefits from inviting people to the game?
In Dark Forest, you mean?
Yeah.
No, it's mostly curated through guilds. So the founder just make sure guilds a lot of they have a lot of OG players, like hundreds, and it's a few guilds. So founder just make sure they send the right amount of invites. That's basically what you are trying also. But with automation stuff, also Dark Forest, maybe it's working for Dark Forest to allow bots because the game is so complicated that human with coders are much efficient than bots. It would take too many resources to build bots for Dark Forest.
Yeah, and that's one of the differences. Our game is definitely right now it's a simple farming game. So there's not like a depth yet that makes it difficult for a botter to script around.
But that's also a good point. If you enable that, you make your game develop in that direction. So the resources will be not wasted, but directed towards more advanced gameplay, that is to say. And we can do it gradually. You can turn a little bit, give boss little reward. Maybe don't give them all the spillover. Just feed them a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when you say let's like legalize the bots, how would you envision doing that with the current game that we have? Because would you just say, okay, you're free to, if you get an invite, you're free to do whatever you want, and we're not going to ban you for any sort of automation?
Yeah, and let's assume there is some reward in Metaverse spillover, and bot will just I don't have all the answers, but there'll be some gameplay, and somehow humans should be more efficient in it. Maybe in Dark Forest it's solved in a way that humans can write some plugins, some code, and you basically can automate your actions. But
Yeah, it's automation.
That-
With the thing with Dark Forest is that, I mean, it's such a completely different game. You're literally in a fog of war. You can't see what other people are doing. So you need to kind of think about all the possibilities.
But that's also different environment. We need some, we need some movement, some actions from Aavegotchis. It will be more difficult for bots.
Yeah, and that's coming. That's like what our multiple members of the team are working on a lot of that kind of thing. It's just it takes a little bit of time to get that to a point where we're ready to like share it with the community because it's still very rough.
Oh, it's actually, I like how game is at this stage. It's maybe what we need, like small community, a lot of build, and I like how everything is evolving. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think this bear market is gonna fly by. We're gonna come out of it with a super polished game and great like a sustainable economy, and I think it's gonna be really nice. But we all need to just yeah, work hard and think about what kind of game we want to create. But yeah, for now, I think the kind of the priority to vote on or think about is, do we want to turn on spillover for the harvester release? If so, then we would need to consider some sort of invite system, which is what the cartridge console system is trying to do in a way that continues to allow like gives OGs access to inviting the players that they've kind of already onboarded, while also giving a system for new players to onboard as well in a controlled way.
That's actually a very good idea that you basically just control, don't let it grow 100x, just let it grow a little bit. Next step, next step. That's very smart approach.
But you mentioned a second ago, so the invites in Dark Forest, just to learn a little bit more about that, who decides like who is going to get the invite?
I just the core team. They, in that sense, there is
Okay.
no decentralized solution.
Right. So that's what I with the console cartridge, we could do it that way as well. But what I am trying to do with the cartridge console system is to actually do it in a more decentralized way where we're not the ones like Pixelcraft is not the ones or the DAO is not the ones deciding who can get the invite. It's a system that kind of sets itself up, and over time, all we need to do is kind of pick off the players that are obviously botting and make sure that they're not being rewarded, and then the system will kind of take care of itself in an organic way without us having to try and interfere and give out more invites or like tune how many invites need to be given. Although we would have a couple levers. We could potentially say, okay, if we think we're growing too slow, the console could suddenly give out 2 invites per month instead of 1. Or if we're growing too fast, we could also like roll that back from 2 to 1. So there's a couple things we could do there. But the idea is that Pixelcraft or the core team, the DAO, is not the ones giving out invites to people, letting them do the onboarding and letting them find the quality players.
Yeah, I agree. I got a question from Mikey G. He's saying there seems to be a lot of questions about whether turning on spillover is a good thing. What, from your perspective, Coder Dan, I have my perspective on, the value I think that spillover can bring to players who are actually invested in the game. What value do you see of like turning on spillover? I mean, to me, it seems like it's going to be helpful when we're scaling, but also it opens the door, I guess, for other issues.
Well, first of all, I would think from the NFT perspective, um, the players who are also kind of investors in land, kind of when they purchased the land, they were told that there would be part of their yield would be given out as spillover that they would be able to collect. And so as the harvester release is now close to being live, uh, I'm just thinking from a realm owner's perspective, I would be kind of bummed out there was no spillover for my parcel. So that's one angle. From the like onboarding players perspective, I mean, I don't think anyone can deny that we did have a lot of activity in the Discord, in the game, while the spillover was live. We were definitely getting lots of new inbound.
Yeah.
But the problem was probably just that we weren't probably converting at the levels that would make this more sustainable. We're just getting a lot of people who were coming in and taking the tokens and selling them, which if this were like a traditional business, I think I use the analogy of like doing Google ads trying to sell yoga pants, but you're marketing it to like 50-year-old men. It's like you're not going to get any conversion rate. It's just you're wasting your money. So if we think from that perspective, the spillover is basically our marketing budget for that, and we need to be observant of our conversion rates and see, is the spillover that we're giving away, are we bringing in new players? Are they buying the craftables? Are they investing in land? Are they getting gotchis? Or are they just saying thank you and leaving? So that's that would be, we haven't had that much time to actually look at the analytics of like each individual player. I mean, it's all the data is out there. If anyone like wanted to continue working on the Know Your Scholar dashboard that I started, I open sourced it. So all the data is out there. It can be queried with BigQuery. So we could easily make leaderboards that show all that information. It would be quite interesting if anyone wanted to work on that. But that's the kind of if we do go full throttle, turning it back on and trying to and grow the user base with that way, we probably do need to have more of those kind of tools that are giving more transparency into the economic, like the unit economics of the game.
I like it with Mikey J. I forked it and called it Know Your Gotchi Gang, and I'm running all y'all's addresses through it. And we're gonna have a day of reckoning soon. Well, that's the other thing, right? It's like you know, it wasn't just players. This is a problem that everybody in the game, I guess, is maybe a part of this, where we don't have anything to really spend our alchemic on right now. The craftables are growing in number, so one day we'll have a whole range of craftable items, and players maybe won't be, even asset owners won't be, you know, dumping their alchemica, turning it into something else. uh you know, I think it's just about aligning the incentives for thinking long term about alchemica in general. You know, how can we think more long term about this alchemica resource, which it is a finite resource, even though there is a large amount of alchemica over 30-year vesting period. It's a finite resource. It's going to run out one day. You know, we're farming it right now because there's a lot of it. You know, some people are turning it into fiat because they don't see a reason to hang on to it right now. But I think this cartridge model maybe adds the right incentives for people to not only be thinking about their own alchemica, but also be thinking about what kind of players are earning alchemica and what are they doing with that alchemica. That's how I see this cartridge console model. You know, and if we can figure that out, um, and we can start using these levers to start scaling the game and getting the right players through the door, I think spillover could be a really great mechanic to have in the game.
Yeah, and another thing about spillover, the way it currently is very like a very primitive way of doing spillover. Spillover could be many ways. One idea we had was like it would be kind of crystallized, and you would have to actually like attack it um, with your weapons and like break it apart, and then it would kind of spill out. Or it could be a treasure chest, and you had to do something like a little mini quest to open it. There's a lot of different ways we can do spillover. It doesn't just have to be the current way where you just run around and pick it up. That's a very primitive way. But we will definitely like continue iterating on that. once we get a little bit more bandwidth.
An interesting idea I know you had mentioned for Alchemica, I think this was months ago, was having congealed Alchemica, Alchemica that's formed into clumps and somehow needs to be broken apart for you to actually get the Alchemica to pick up. So, I mean, that could be a really interesting mechanic if Alchemica, instead of just freely just falling all over the map, was actually congealing into like crystals or something, and you'd actually have to break apart the crystals somehow. You could have maybe like 4 or 5 gotchis surrounding this thing trying to break it apart, and then when it breaks apart, then it releases a localized area of spillover. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's almost exactly what we were thinking. I think it's cool. Obviously, there's no skill element yet. We're still missing kind of a core like skill element that would help the human players outperform a bot in that aspect. But it would definitely be more interesting, and it would probably give more utility to the wearables too. So that's a kind of feature once we have the traits released that we're thinking of implementing something similar to that. So if you have your Hattori Hanzo sword, you could just like slash through Alchemica all day without even breaking a sweat. Whereas like if you have a basic wearable, it might take you longer. But yeah, it could be other ideas would just be like it could somehow form a liquidator. The liquidator suddenly, hey, there's a random liquidator in the Citadel, and you need to kill it. Or it could be like some sort of opponent that just magically congeals in the Gotchiverse. The Gotchiverse is a weird place, weird, wacky place that we haven't really explored enough of yet. So
that ties in with what Yannick was saying. This is another tool we could use in addition to the cartridge console, is to actually develop some more complexity into collecting the action of collecting Alchemica. Maybe we make that a little bit more complex, a little more fun. Another like MMORPG I used to play called Albion, you'd go mining for these resources, but every now and then you'd be mining a rock and it would actually form into like a monster, like a golem, or like there'd be different types of monsters, and you'd have to fight it just to collect your resources, or the thing would try and kill you. So it's like you say, like you could be mining for Alchemica and a liquidator. Maybe there's veins underneath the Gotchiverse where liquidators have found their way into, and once in a while you'll hit one of these and a liquidator will come out, and you'll have to fight it. So like these are the sorts of things would make things fun.
Yeah, I mean, totally. That's exactly like I have a ton of ideas on how to make the gameplay like even more interesting than it currently is. It's just we've just been there's a lot of infrastructure things that the team's been working on just to handle all the different, async servers. There's like 30 servers running in parallel with each other, and just a lot of infra laying the groundwork for this game that's taken a little bit longer than we hoped. But at the end of the day, it's going to be the basics are getting laid right now for the long term. So once a lot of that stuff is done, then more of the team can start focusing on actual feature work. We have like a pretty long list of features. One thing I didn't mention earlier was that the chat bubbles are confirmed feature in the next farm release. So they're not farming related, but we're trying out another method for socializing in the Gotchiverse. So I think we're actually probably going to replace the current chat because it's just not really living up to what what our original design was. So we're probably going to replace the current chat with just like localized text bubbles, unless you guys really want to keep both, in which case we could. I think it'll just take up extra space.
Well, with games like World of Warcraft and stuff, they have like the text chat box, kind of like what we have right now. But those are only useful for when you are doing like large coordinations between your guild or between groups, where you'd be going on a raid or something, and it'd be, you want to keep the text bubbles off the screen because you don't want people to see what you're talking about. So you'd use the text box.
Yeah, so the thing is, we don't have enough bandwidth for this release to get like a full chat system. Like what we're envisioning even more than we currently have, like not quite as complex as like a Discord, but instead of the chat being on top of your game window, you would have like a side bar on the left side that would have all of your chat stuff. So you like your game screen would be clean. You would have the chat on the left side, and all your channels and stuff would be there. But that's a little bit it's not really part of this release. So we were just thinking, maybe we just remove the main chat right now and then just keep the chat bubbles, because that's what people really want for now.
Yeah, that makes more sense for right now where we're at in the game. You know, I don't think we need the text box at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
And you know, most of the time people just used to spam in those text boxes anyway with items they're selling. So there wasn't like a whole lot of substantial conversation. But I feel like the text bubbles are going to be really useful.
I think it's going to be fun. Yeah, very simple, just like super easy. It won't distract from the game at all. You'll be walking around, you'll see people can chat with you. We're also adding a feature. It's going to be nice. Right now, one of my pet peeves is like you might emote to someone and they don't emote back. You're like, whoa, why? It just happens they might be crafting, or they might be in another tab, like they tabbed over for a second. So right now there's no indication of that. But we're going to be adding a feature probably fairly soon that will kind of make the gotchi a little bit transparent if they are like AFK, or if they're in another tab, or if they're crafting. So that should be nice too.
That'll be a nice quality of life improvement. Soft Machine, shouldn't we have a quiz for all owners before handing out console cartridges to educate them? If they fail, then they'd have to take the quiz again. That way they align with the console cartridge rules for the game. This would be most ideal if we implement this system. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think we should have some sort of tutoring or some sort of guide or something that lets these asset owners know, you know, hey, you're going to be getting these you know, if we decide, point one, if we decide to do this, there should be maybe some sort of education around it. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Maybe. I mean, quizzes are generally, unless you have like, we'd have to have a very large number of questions. Otherwise, they're just gonna just share the answers with each other. That's generally what happens. We'd have to have like randomized questions and a big question base. So could be interesting. I mean, they'd have to learn. You also have to like think about language barriers. Yeah, they have to be
Oh yeah,
localized.
I know John Gotchi is working on a pretty extensive education program around Aavegotchi for someone who's never even used an exchange, you know, like very, you know, base level, doesn't know anything, maybe not even crypto native, can start with this course that he's created. Still in the testing phase, but I'm looking forward to that. And I wonder if we can integrate, you know, cartridges and education around that into this as well, because it does add a little bit of complexity, but it is also gamified in a way, so people will be interested in learning this because it benefits them, right? I think one of the things we didn't touch on is a player who starts with a cartridge can eventually get a console, right? If
Right.
they're
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. The idea was that so the console can actually be purchased. It would be quite expensive because it's a console. It's a big item, but also because it gives you a discount on crafting and maybe upgrading. So the other way to, if you don't want to buy it and you didn't earn it, or you didn't get it because you weren't an OG in the original airdrop, you would be able to eventually level your cartridge up into a console. It would take quite a while, uh, because basically you would have to. It's like you're purchasing it with your crafting. It would take a while, but eventually you could actually get to that point.
introduces another interesting way for a player who has nothing in the game to eventually have the ability to almost act like an asset owner. And once they have the ability to be an asset owner, it's like, well, why don't I just own some assets then? Because I can start managing my assets now because I have a console. So I can start, renting out the Gotchi. They can start collecting spillover. Hopefully, if I manage that guy well, he starts crafting for me. I earn a little bit of his thing. I start leveling up my console. So I could see how this could be appealing for somebody that maybe has a lot of time that want to spend in the game and are able to work towards that. That would be another interesting way, another interesting grind for sure.
Yeah. Well, so we've talked about the cartridges for about an hour. What is the general consensus here? If we were to put this up to a SIG prop, do you guys think that there would be support for it at this moment, or is the general sentiment to just keep spillover off for the Harvester release?
Yeah, I guess that it does make sense to get a hold of that. Do you want to throw out maybe an impromptu a vote?
Yeah, I'll do a quick flash
Yeah.
poll here.
Let's just gather some sentiment because I think it is worth implementing this. But if the majority of people think, well, let's just keep the spillover off, that's an alternative. I just think that's kind of boring, but that's each to their own. I think it was kind of cool to see a lively Gotchiverse. Just gotta curate the right players. And yeah, I mean, to backside BZ's I think can PC handle it? I think that was our initial conversation. This won't really hinder their efforts towards anything else they're doing right now, like as far as our roadmap. But turning on spillover without having any cartridges or anything to control would definitely take away resources.
Yeah, again, it's not going to 100% fix all the bot issues. We still would have to be vigilant and have people like out there bot catching. It would just limit the number of bots that are possible because there aren't enough cartridges for them to be active in the game. So eventually we would get to a point, hopefully, where we've caught the majority of the bots and they're not able to get in and yet because they don't have a cartridge. But again, that's like we would still have to scale up the bot patrol team a little bit and like yeah, to scale that up and continue that anti-botting effort.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
all
you'd be
of
a step in the right direction.
that is an effort that is, it does detract. It's not the cartridges itself, which will detract some time. Obviously, there is some development involved in that, but it will still be an ongoing effort, like with the anti-bot effort. Whereas if they're turned off, if spillover is turned off completely, we aren't as worried about the bots. So we do have a little bit more bandwidth to focus on other things. So it really is just a trade-off. Okay, looking at the flash poll here, we got should spillover be implemented for the farm release? 27 yays, 17 nays so far. So pretty close.
I mean, you say it all the time. We're early, so this is an issue we're gonna have to tackle either later down the line when the game's more active, or we try and tackle it now, and go through the growing pains of it with a smaller player base. I think those are kind of the options, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are early, which also means that the gameplay isn't as like fully developed as it will be eventually, which does make it harder. There's no real advantage that a human has over the bots at this point. So in the future, we can develop like more advanced gameplay. I think someone mentioned like walls are going to be harder for the bots to handle because they're just gonna run. Some of them they'll be pretty stupid. They'll just run into the wall. Obviously, they'll probably eventually figure out how to pathfind around the walls, but it would take them a little bit of time to learn how to do that.
Walls will add a random element to the Gotchiverse, which I didn't really think about before, but it reminds me of that one parcel close next to yours where the guys used GM signs like a wall because there's some collisions there, and it does get in the way, right? Instead of walking across that parcel, you now have to go all the way around, and that's a spacious parcel. So imagine having multiple of those parcels everywhere, and some of them are estates, so they'll be grouped together. So I feel like it does add a random element, but then I guess my technical knowledge isn't as high as yours, so you'd probably know how to figure out, how to get your bot to move around these walls where maybe a lot of people wouldn't.
Yeah.
I like Mark's point too. Tackling it now does kick everything else further down the road. I don't know if it'll be different in 6 months though. Like, bots, like they're always gonna find a way to do something. If it's incentivized by, like, if there's a monetary incentive for someone to create a bot, there'll always be that. There'll always be someone trying to figure out how to make money. If there's a way,
Mm.
I don't see how. I just don't see how kicking this problem down the road is going to be any better. That's the only thing. I do see the point though.
Yeah, and there's also other protocols that are emerging. I haven't really seen any that I would really trust as a long-term solution yet, that are for like decentralized identity. Even like the Polygon ID just came out a few days ago. I tried to use it. It didn't work on my computer and it didn't work on my phone. So I haven't been able to try it yet. But if anyone has tried it, let me know. The Polygon ID just got released like a couple days ago. So maybe in the future, like those are also solutions that will be coming online. So there's Polygon ID, there's I think it's called IDENA, there's like Bright ID, which some of them have been around for a little bit, some of them have been around longer. Some of them have like weird tokenomics that we don't really want to force you like players to buy some other project's token just to get access to the game. So that's something to think about as well. But I do think that like decentralized identity is something that a lot of projects are working on, not just us. And so we would just say, okay, well, you got verified, you can play. And if we catch you as a botter, you as a human unfortunately cannot play this game anymore.
I like Vanilla Delphia's idea. It'd be cool to have suspected bots teleported to a maze and they have to find their way out to prove their humanity. It is interesting. Yeah, I think
I've been
we've
thinking
talked
of some
about it.
ideas for like an Aavegotchi lore-based captcha. But it basically needs to be the level of like if you guys have ever done like an IQ test where they give you like 3 pictures and you need to choose the 4th one. But it has to be generated randomly. It can't be something that we like program in. It needs to be something that every test needs to be unique because otherwise they can make like they can make like a list of all the answers. But I think that would be pretty interesting. I think it'd be fairly difficult for a bot to be able to solve like an IQ test, but someone who knows Gotchi Gang lore would be able to get around it. For example, you could have like a raffle. You could show the front, the back, the left side, and then the question would be you'd have 4 choices and you'd have to pick the correct answer, and obviously it would be like the right side. So that'd be pretty hard for a bot to figure out. Yeah, basically it's a Gotchi Turing test. I mean, it's an IQ test. It's not a Turing test. It's an IQ test. It would measure your understanding of the lore and also of the like whatever factor we're asking in there. So it would be something that would definitely involve some development, but it could be useful as a CAPTCHA.
A cool way to have little events, mini events, and mini games in old school RuneScape, where you'd be going around doing things, and then like a wizard or like some sort of character would like pop up out of nowhere, and they'd be like, "Hey, let's play this game. Do you want to play?" And you'd click on it, and then it would take you to like a mini game. You'd like get teleported to like a little mini game, and you'd have to play the mini game, and then you'd be teleported back to your original location after. But I guess in a way it was kind of to prove if you're a bot, because if you are a bot, then you'll just never click on those things. You just won't play, because there was actually an incentive to play. You'd get some sort of prize, you would get some sort of, you'd get some gold or something out of it. So it'd kind of be ridiculous not to click on it and just play a quick little mini game and you get something for it. But you'd know someone is a bot if they're just not clicking on any of these things, because then, why would you not do that? There's a financial incentive. So maybe that would be a cool way to connect to the arcade, is like if some sort of like a raffle NPC would show up while you're roaming around the Gotchiverse, and it would say, "Hey, click on me." And if you click on it, it takes you to one of the mini games in the arcade, and you'd have to play that for a round or something, and then you get teleported back. I know it's complex. Like, I don't understand the technical level to implement that, but that's definitely a cool idea.
Yeah, that's pretty fun. Like doing something that's not explicitly financial, but it has but if you don't do it, then you're sus.
You're sus, yeah. Because like, why would you not do that? What if there's like a prize? Maybe there's 500 glitter or something on the line that if you, as a prize, you reach a certain score and you get 500 glitter just for doing that little mini game. Like, why would you not do that unless you're a bot?
Yeah, anything that's like it forces the player to think longer term is where bots have more trouble. They don't have long-term memory. They can only program things that they can program. So anything that requires like long-term strategic thinking or memory is very difficult for them.
Yeah, I think that was their idea there, because that game, I keep bringing it up, but like World of Warcraft, like some of these MMORPGs, they've had to deal with this problem for like decades, and it's been an arms race, but they've actually found some really good solutions over that time period. And I feel like we could try and maybe not copy, because like they also don't have the same monetary incentives that we do. So the stakes are a lot higher in our game, but we could also use some of what they're doing as a model to form what we want to do. Like this cartridge console model is very interesting.
Yeah, having the NFTs, I mean, it definitely complicates things because they don't have like players that have invested real money into their game that they need to ensure that they're catering and making sure they're not like excluding those players. So there's definitely that layer to it that does make things a little bit harder. But I'm confident, we will definitely find solutions, and there probably will never be a final uh like way to solve all this perfectly, but we'll keep iterating. But yeah, we will in the end we need to have like more deeper gameplay that requires strategic thinking a little bit more than just picking up tokens.
Yeah, agreed. I'm trying to find your poll. I think Goob's pinned it maybe.
Right.
So flash poll.
Like 29 to 22. So yeah, still pretty close.
Pretty close, yeah. So I mean, ultimately, if we decide at the end we don't want to do this, and the court, I guess we'll put out a sig prop anyway, right, to get a vote on it. But if everybody decides at the end that we don't want to do this, does it actually free up any bandwidth? Like, does
Oh
this
yeah.
get
For
Yeah.
sure. It will definitely, like, if we don't have to implement the cartridges, we'll just focus on other things that are a little bit longer term.
So
I'm
I guess
really excited to focus on the SDK. Like that's gonna be really fun for me.
actually that is kind of my question. So if we decide, if the community as a whole decides they don't want to do this anymore, or they don't want to do it right now per se, at this very early stage gameplay, very basic level gameplay, and they want to maybe implement this when we have a little bit more complexity, and also more structure in the Gotchiverse, like actual structure. Um, then what? Alternately, what would you guys be using that time for instead?
Um, so the Solidity side, we do have a little bit of the cartridge done, but that would be, we would have to spend some time on that. So that would be at least like one Solidity developer working on that, which otherwise would probably be working on just the overall like realm, the realm parcel and all that kind of release. Although I should say we are fairly close to like having all that finalized and ready for deployment. So on the Solidity side, we're not too bad. Like we have the bandwidth without having to like take up too much of my time or delaying anything on the farming side. So the main bandwidth would be the Realm team because it's not a feature that you can just launch without any kind of front end for it. There would need to be a front end. We would need to kind of guide people, especially new people. They would be like, all right, well, I want to play your game. What do I do? We need to send them to, need to play like a place for where they can go and they can see who has cartridges, or like maybe the guilds could have like a portal where they could show how many cartridges they have ready to give out. And we would need to kind of have a dashboard for the console showing what level your console is, how many like when's the next time you're going to get your cartridge, how many cartridges you've given out. There could be a lot of features that we could build, but there wouldn't be enough time to do all of that. So we would have to basically start with the basics of showing, here's your cartridge, here's your console, here's probably the level, and here's how many you have to give out. And that's probably where we would stop. And then maybe have a way to show like, here's how you can, if you don't have a cartridge, you don't have a console, here's how you can get one. So the majority of the time on that would be front end, which, as you guys know, a lot of our front end right now is working on the V2. So we'd have to take a little bit of time probably away from that. And then on the Realm side, we'd have to make a couple modifications to like, we'd have to check if the user has a console or a cartridge before allowing them to pick up spillover or channeling Alchemica on other people's parcels, things like that. So there'd be some checks that we would have to update within the game. And we move fast, we can ship fast, but at the same time, there's quite a bit of complexity, just with all the different release and all the things we're trying to do. So this would just be another feature on top of it. And we all know in software development, if you have feature creep, it usually doesn't end up in a super great place. Like features end up having to get cut, or they don't get fully implemented. So it would be probably would be a trade-off there.
So I guess, my follow-up question would be, is there a downside to implementing the cartridge? If we're going to implement it anyway, would it be more optimal to implement it when the time is right? When we have certain features already implemented? Or would it be better to implement the cartridges earlier on and keep iterating on them? Because it sounds like there would have to be features or adjustments made as we move along with the game. But then you also mentioned this feature creep aspect. So now I'm wondering, if we see the necessity to introduce cartridges into our game, is it better to do it at this point in the gameplay, or is it better to do it once we have a little bit more development down the line, such as harvesters, walls, these things that are coming? or
Yeah,
would it
it's what
not make a difference at all?
see what everyone here listening, what do you guys think?
Yeah,
There's no correct answer.
there isn't.
Yeah, so it's you can't at this point where we are, I do think it would be really interesting to have, and I think it would make onboarding a little easier actually, because like when you limit access to something and then give someone a ticket, they're more interested in like learning about it because it's like, oh, this is kind of like exclusive. I have a ticket. That's cool. Whereas right now everything is just as long as you got the NFT, you can jump in. So from the onboarding of new players, I think it would be cooler to have the cartridges, some sort of invitation system. But
There's a marketing angle there. It's
yeah,
like we're now an exclusive club, and we can start reaching out to people that way.
but I mean, the majority of the world has never even heard of Aavegotchi yet. So if we start that system 6 months from now, there's still going to be billions of people who have never heard of this game. They don't even know, they don't even realize we're not exclusive right now because they've never heard of the game. So there's always time to make yourself exclusive. Until until you're on Bloomberg and people are hearing about you in like in the paper, there's plenty of time to go into like an exclusive mode, I think.
I mean, that's the goal eventually, right? We are going to be in the paper and on Bloomberg and whatnot. So we have to get our ducks in a row before that. But we still have time.
Exactly. This space is so hard to figure out. There's so much happening, and this is a totally new area of gaming. I mean, none of the like big studios have really started moving into this space yet. Everyone is figuring out everything as we go along. Like there's no playbook. All we can kind of rely on is like traditional marketing, like make sure you have your funnel, you have your unit economics, you kind of know what your numbers are. So that kind of stuff, we're starting to figure that out, but we're not that far on the path yet.
Yeah, I agree. Just see Arbiculum on stage here. I want to welcome you up.
Hey, thanks. My question to Cutter Dan, and I didn't see the answer, if he answered it, was when we get bot swarms during the spillovers, was there what was the monetary marginal cost to these bot swarms to the actual, Pixelcraft has to pay, I would assume, AWS for, hey, your Elastic server's got to expand out because now you got 4,000 people hitting this thing. Was that appreciable that, no one realizes that, hey, 4,000 or 3,000, guys, that's really draining us for us just swatting constantly?
Yeah, I'd
Or
have
was
to
it
sign into the
negligible?
console. So definitely we are we need to have more servers on as when we have more players. I mean that's definitely true. We are doing a lot more of optimizations recently that are helping with that, like how many players one server can support. But yeah, there's no doubt that where we are right now, I think we've actually downscaled the number of like servers that are currently active from, I think it was 64 before, and now we're at like 16, just to basically have like bare bones support for each region. So yeah, when we go up to 4,000 players, there's definitely more cost for the AWS side. I think the Kubernetes side, the Redis side. Like there's more cost overall for sure.
Okay, so that certainly, from what you're saying, that certainly lends to the thought that, hey, we can't really support bot swarms right now, even if we had a good idea. We need to figure this out to carrot good players in and, make sure that bots just sort of aren't interested, or people acting as bots. When you
Yeah.
get 1,000 people who just want to sell, and no matter what Turing test we put in their way, of course they get out of mazes, build up a set of questions. You know, they're humans. Their only goal is to sell.
Yeah, and again, selling is not the problem. It's just that they're not actual like players selling it. They're just like it's a virtual private server set up somewhere that is completely automated. It's not like a player making that decision.
Yeah, but I mean, they have no skin in the game, no interest
Yeah. Yeah,
in
they're
the
just
game. It's
they got a
just
Gotchi for point 0.1 ghost and they got some Matic and they play for 8 hours and then cash everything out.
yeah,
They're not interested in the game at all.
agreed. So I mean, that's kind of just a bot light type of player in a way. Their motives are almost bot-ish, you know. Um, so I mean, I like the cartridge idea definitely. Anything that, you know, if you assumed like limits to infinity, when you solve some things, you take the variables to infinity, and like you've done, you've taken Sybil attacking, saying, look, they can make infinite accounts.
Mhm.
So, and then assuming that these bots and humans that act like bots, you know, are near infinite, what can be done if you just take that variable to a large number that would just not, that would disincentivize them. And I like the cartridge idea that it sort of begins to clip into that and say, this is just not worth their time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they could make it worth their time if they could. A botter could theoretically go out and buy a cartridge, buy a console. Which would be a pretty big, large. It would be a big upfront investment for them. So they would definitely think twice about that because then we would just see, oh, everyone that you give a cartridge to gets banned. So yeah, we're just gonna auto ban whoever you invite next time.
What would be the other aspects of a console, you know, besides cartridge generation or
You
invite
would
generation?
also get a discount for having a console, which is kind of necessary because if you don't give a discount on crafting, then they could just basically send their money to a player with a cartridge, have that player craft something, and then uh, the console owner would get 5% back, and then so it essentially becomes a 5% discount.
I
But what
see.
we're thinking is that the console over time, as it levels up, it could actually get a bigger discount on crafting and potentially upgrading as well. But that's something that would need to be kind of a separate discussion.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess
Cool.
also
Yeah,
another
thanks.
thing to consider if we were to implement this cartridge model earlier on would be the benefit. There is a benefit to owners here getting this crafting discount slash maybe even upgrading discount. While we're getting our harvesters, we're getting our um, whatever other structures are going to be released here in the next little bit, 4 or 5 months. We will as part of this model, if you're able to utilize your console cartridge, you can you'll be able to get some discounts on crafting, which I think is also another interesting take on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of a referral program. I mean, referral programs are definitely very popular in all industries, so it makes sense that well, I've wanted to have a referral program in the bazaar forever, but it's just haven't it's not something we've been able to really figure out that how to make it work in a good way without adding extra fees to the bazaar. But I mean, referral programs are awesome. They definitely drive new players and drive a lot of like the growth of every industry.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we covered a lot of points here because we're at an hour and a half. I mean, I feel okay with just covering the one topic for today because it is something we have to either decide are we gonna, commit time, resources, testing, all that to this right now, or is this something we want to do later, get consensus around that, maybe get a proposal, and
Yeah.
then
Does anyone
and
want to
then
make a proposal? I'm signing off here soon, but does anyone in the DAO like want to make a sig prop for this? Like, should we gotta think about how to phrase it here? Should we basically, I mean, the main question is, do we want to disable spillover for the farm release, or do we want to keep it on and implement cartridges?
yeah, those are basically the two options, right? Keep spillover on, implement cartridges, or turn spillover off for the farming release, and implement cartridges at a later time. Maybe I still think the cartridge idea is a great idea, but in my mind, it's just about do we implement that now or do we implement it later? Basically, that's what it comes down to in my mind. But Mark says he's happy to create a sig prop. Yeah, I mean, I could even do it, but I also, yeah, I guess I could, but we'll see if anybody else doesn't step up to it, then I can definitely do it. Yeah, those are the two options there. Keep spillover off, turn spillover on, implement cartridges. Oh yeah, hardcore. Yeah, hardcore is on it. Sweet. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we covered the one topic for today. Let me see if there's anything else we needed to. There wasn't really a whole lot else. Estates, we just need an updated prop for that. We talked about cartridges today, and then there's the tickets discussion with. I think there was already a proposal created on that reach quorum, saying don't sunset, um, don't sunset friends. But we can talk about that next weekend. And
Yeah, that's a good topic. Very interesting. That reached
I believe
where
it
did that
reached.
get?
It was
Reach quorum?
close, man. It was really close. Let's
Let me
see.
find that one. Oh, Sunset Friends, use glitter for ticket. It's got 6 hours left.
Oh, 6 hours.
And okay, so yeah, it's basically 50-50.
It's almost a 50-50 on that one. So
That's interesting. So, I mean, technically, yeah, there's like a 7% difference, right, between it right now, which is not enough to like by our DAO rules. It needs to be, I think, is it 10%, 15%
I thought it was
to
15.
actually, yeah, to actually count. So, yeah, just shows that there probably need more work on that proposal. Figure out a little bit more of the concrete details. I mean,
Yeah.
when we're making these proposals, the more details, the better. Like as specific as possible. Consider it as an on-chain function that you're executing when you make a proposal, because eventually it will be.
Yeah, and maybe we can use this as a starting point for a conversation next week around this and see if we can either come up with a better proposal or come to more of a consensus around what we want to do.
I think there was a kind of a sister proposal to just start sunsetting Friends. I don't know if that one ever got made into a SIG prop, but I mean, it would be wiser to put that together as like a full package, so we have like a roadmap for what we're going to be doing with Friends versus Glitter.
Yeah, exactly. So, in regards to the one for today, we should be seeing some sort of a SIG prop. I think Hardcore and Mark are going to be teaming up on that, so we can take our vote once those fellas got that together. I got nothing for today, but do you have any closing remarks there, Dan?
Just that we are definitely working on I guess it's not really a V3 roadmap, but kind of a Gotchiverse roadmap. And I can't promise it'll go out next week, but we are actively working on that, and we have a lot of things to share with you guys about what we're planning to implement. So Just thank you for your patience for that as we formulate this kind of longer term roadmap for the Gotchiverse. We know where we want to go. It's just there's a lot of the timing of things and various features we're going to be implementing needs to all be like very clearly mapped out for everyone. But we definitely are actively working on getting that next roadmap, and I'm pretty pumped. I think it's going to be really cool. I'm really excited about the SDK because I think it's gonna open up a lot of possibilities.
Is there a place where people can dump their ideas on the SDK? I know that's something you were requesting.
Yep.
Earlier.
There's a thread called SDK wishlist. So just dump whatever you want in there. Like at this point, don't filter yourself too much. Let us do the filtering, but we just want to see what you guys would love to see, and then what we want to do with the SDK is basically have a system, a framework that allows maximum creativity with like the minimum amount of code, which is obviously tough to do. But if you've ever looked at like Decentraland has like a pretty cool SDK that you can work with. So that is kind of a model. We're not going to reinvent the wheel totally, but we have a very different game from them in many ways, like the way our servers are set up and the various like activities. So I don't think it'll be exactly the same, but it would be something to kind of think about as well.
All right. And then one last thing I had a question about. I know the ATF proposal, it didn't go through. Do you want the ATF to create another proposal, or are we just going to move forward with the core prop on that one?
If they don't mind, I think it'd be better if we had like a core prop that did reach a sig prop that reached quorum. It's not, you can just like duplicate the original one. I think it's just the vault wasn't able to vote. It does look a little strange, I guess. In the future, people will be like, well, the ATF vote didn't get quorum, but it got promoted into a core prop.
Yeah,
So,
I see that.
like
Yeah,
ideally, we can try to be consistent. And I get that it was like a technical thing on. I think it was Snapshot was down that day. But if they don't mind, I mean, we can start moving forward with it. I think it just makes sense to have a core prop based on a sig prop that reached quorum.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Can definitely relay that message to them. I got nothing else. Besides, we got Gotchi Space tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern, for anybody who wants to come hang out. That's on Twitter.
Cool. All right, friends. Well, have a great Sunday, and yeah, I will. Looking forward to seeing the sig prop up tomorrow. We'll publicize that a little bit. Make sure everyone is aware of it because these are getting close to the farming release. We need to figure out exactly what everyone's preference is, and we can work from there.
Yeah, thank you for your time and hanging out with us on Sunday here.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, and
Stay
thank you to
chill,
everyone
Gotchi
else.
gang.
Yeah. Later, friends. Thank you for coming out, hang out with us. See you either tonight or next week. Peace out, friends.